Greetings, I'm Alex. I am 24 and employed in marketing. Until recently, my life had been quite routine. I rent a small home, work diligently at my job, and strive to meet the payments on time. However, over the past few months, things have taken a turn for the worse. Rent prices in the city surged. My roommate left me unexpectedly, and I found myself overwhelmed by mounting expenses. That's when my friend Austin offered a helping hand, suggesting, "Why don't you stay at my place temporarily?" With no objections from my parents, I moved into the guest room at his suburban family home. His dad often travels for work, but his mom, Carolyn, is usually present. I remember her from when she used to pick up Austin after practice. She consistently exhibited a graceful gentleness. Her golden hair, vibrant blue eyes, and self-assured presence captivated everyone. Yet, it had been years since I last saw her. Upon moving in, I believed she'd offer a cordial welcome before resuming her life. However, my assumptions were incorrect. It was on my second day that Austin left, and while making coffee in the kitchen, Carolyn entered in a charming gray robe that reached nearly to her knees. Her hair was still wet, as if she had just stepped out of a shower. I endeavored not to gawk, but she looked remarkably beautiful. She mentioned mournfully, as though it were an ordinary day, "I hoped you hadn't left prematurely." She elaborated that she planned to transport a box of ornaments from the garage to the attic, but found it too heavy to handle alone. I gave a nod and offered, "Naturally, I'll assist you." We ventured out to the garage together. The box wasn't excessively heavy, but I went along anyhow. I trailed behind her up the stairs. "Dear friends, please help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you." At the attic doorway, she flashed me a sugary grin. "I'll pretend you're merely helping," she remarked softly, her lips subtly curling at the edge. We both knew it was more than moving a box. A subtle change seemed to pass between us, wordlessly. In the attic, I handed her the box without saying a word. That smile lingered in my mind. Later that evening, Austin came home, restoring normalcy. We dined, watched an excessively action-packed movie, and laughed as we usually did. However, the event in the attic remains strikingly clear in my memory. Her voice, her eyes, and the way she spoke echoed repeatedly in my thoughts. The following morning, she asked for help again. She claimed a curtain rod in her room had become loose. Austin was already at work. I stood in the kitchen in gym shorts and a tank top, sipping water, when she walked in, fully dressed. Still, there was an unsettling aspect in her countenance when I ventured into her chamber. The stillness echoed, brimming with tension. Ascending the ladder to repair the rod, I turned to find her standing near, too proximate for comfort. She voiced, "I've been solo in this dwelling longer than you might perceive." Motionless, we remained as I responded, "You don't appear to be someone who abhors solitude." She smiled enigmatically. "Perhaps you'll find that surprising." A pause ensued, devoid of touch or embrace. Merely another work shift had passed, adding to the growing intrigue. It was apparent this wasn't a casual flirtation for her, and I mirrored her earnestness. That Thursday night, everything transitioned from potential to indisputable fact. Austin had other plans for that evening. He encountered a woman at the gym, exited by 6 p.m. in a laid-back attire. No need to linger. By 7 p.m., the house held an undisturbed silence. Tranquil. Carolyn appeared in the kitchen while I was constructing a sandwich. She donned black slacks and a fitting beige silk top. She appeared drained, yet effortlessly attractive. "Aren't you much of a chef?" she queried, offering a smile as she leaned on the counter. I returned her grin. "Unless sandwiches are involved, not really." She moved towards me softly, She poured herself a glass of wine. Even sandwiches beat nothing, she remarked. I consented subtly. We settled in the living room, opposite ends of the couch. The television was on, but neither of us were engrossed. We simply conversed. Initially, the topics varied: humorous tales from Austin's youth, her employment at a local nonprofit, her recent exhaustion. Her voice was soothing and steady. However, there was a depth hidden beneath it, a weighty secret. She didn't explicitly express it, but her gaze at the glass suggested something unspoken. He then inquired, "Do you sometimes feel as if you're merely existing?" I met her eyes squarely. Every moment, I realized, she fully faced me. "I've been married for 21 years, Alex," she stated. 22 years, she added. Out of those, how many made me feel like a genuine companion? There was no response from me. No words were needed. She let out a soft laugh. "Perhaps I shouldn't be saying all this," she seemed to question herself. "It's all right," I replied. "There's no need to put on a show around me." After a long moment, she looked at me intently before rising. "Could you help me with something upstairs?" she asked, maintaining a calm exterior. However, there was an underlying change in her tone. We ascended. Her room was dimly lit, casting a soft yellow glow from the lamp beside the bed. She indicated the dresser and its top drawer, stuck once more. I pulled at it. It opened smoothly. It wasn't actually jammed. We both knew that. Turning around, she was only a few steps away. Crossing her arms, Caroline appeared to conceal more than just herself. Her breaths were uneven and hesitant. Before I could compose myself, I found myself saying, "Caroline, maybe we should end this before it even begins." Unmoving, she inquired, "Shall we stop?" Left unanswered, she edged nearer. Despite the distance between us, we stood without physical contact. The closeness was palpable, and I could feel the warmth emanating from her body. There was a heavy silence hanging over the unsaid words. Then she leaned in to kiss me. It wasn't hasty or untamed. Rather, it was deliberate and genuine. When I reciprocated her affection, I did not hesitate. I didn't second-guess it. I simply let it transpire. Her fingers traced my arms, reaching my waist in response. She gently led me to the bed, only to halt. Her fingertips brushed against my chest. "Alex," she murmured, making sure I understood that her actions were conscious and deliberate. That night, we remained silent afterward. It fundamentally shifted everything. It wasn't just about physical intimacy. It wasn't a hasty mistake brought on by dullness or intoxication. It was calculated. It was powerful. It was the climax of years trapped in monotony, in an unloving marriage, in silence. For me, it was electrifying, daring, unlike anything I had ever experienced. I sneaked out of her room around 2:20 a.m. I walked down the hallway barefoot, as if I hadn't just crossed a line from which I couldn't return. The house was quiet. Austin's door was shut. My heart raced as if I had just run a mile. I lay in the guest bed, looked up at the ceiling, and had a startling revelation. I didn't feel guilty. I was already looking forward to the next time. This between us soon became a routine. At first, it was minor things. Quick glances around the kitchen, brushing salt with fingertips while passing. But beneath those fleeting moments was a secret heavy enough to defy the laws of physics. In those days, we became adept at concealing our true feelings. Carolyn always exuded calmness and command. Yet as soon as Austin departed from the house, even for a short duration, tranquility dissipated. The same applied to me. After working late for a fortnight following the initial night, Austin was absent. Carolyn texted me, and I recall it vividly. "I'm making tea. Fancy some?" That signaled his absence. 5 minutes passed before I climbed the stairs. Seated on the bed's edge without shoes, her jumper cascading from one shoulder, she was there. She offered me a mug, yet I didn't drink from it. Instead, I placed it gently on the nightstand and kissed her. Words were scarce during those nights, perhaps adding to the intensity. It wasn't about daydreaming or deceiving ourselves. It was about silence, comfort, and being seen without needing to justify oneself. She never expressed it verbally, but I sensed I was more than a mere diversion. Similarly, she wasn't just a thrill for me. Our conversations were more frequent in the mornings. At the kitchen table, post Austin's departure, the household seemed to stir. Our feet subtly touched under the table, as if the previous night's events hadn't transpired. We conversed about literature, politics, her charitable work. I was spellbound by her. Yet, it wasn't all smooth sailing. The guilt lingered, barely veiled. One evening, she lay beside me, gazing intently, as if trying to memorize every line of my face. "This is the first time I've done anything like this," she murmured softly. I acknowledged her statement with a nod. "I am neither guilty nor ashamed." She paused and whispered softly, "But I am terrified." "What precisely are you afraid of?" I inquired. "It's the simplicity of it all," she replied, and it was evident. That's what made it perilous. There's no complexity, no games. It was merely this attraction between us that rewrote all the usual norms, ethics, logic. The potential consequences seemed distant, as if we were in our own bubble where none of it mattered. Time marches on, and rules don't vanish. One afternoon, Austin left work early. I happened to exit Carolyn's room, fortunately fully dressed, when I heard the front door slam shut. My heart nearly leaped from my chest, and I hurried down the hallway into the kitchen as if I'd just stepped out of the bathroom. "Hey man," Austin called from the front door. "What's up?" I managed a smile and answered his call. "Nothing much, just taking it easy." He was completely oblivious to my secret. "How about Carolyn?" She didn't appear downstairs for the rest of the day. That night, she texted me from another room. "We should be more careful." I responded with a brief, "Yes, you're right." Yet, being more cautious didn't mean we would stop altogether. One Saturday, Carolyn's spouse showed up unannounced. He wasn't due back for another 2 days. As I was on the porch, I saw his car pull into the driveway. I quickly darted inside and looked at Carolyn. Her eyes expanded, showing genuine fear for the first time. We didn't exchange words that night, nor did we see each other for 3 full days. During those days, something hit me, something that filled me with both terror and excitement. I miss her, not just her, but I also felt her absence keenly. However, I also realized something else as our situation grew more intricate. Austin and I have been friends for a long time, living under the same roof with the man she was married to. Every action we took could bring harm to lives beyond our own. Yet, we persisted. Another night passed, another stolen kiss, another quiet whisper in the dark. "If I were single, would you stay with me?" The question lingered, unanswered. She didn't insist on a response, but it haunted me. What we shared wasn't just intense and concealed. It was growing heavier with emotional significance. I could feel her dependence on me in the way she looked at me. For years, she hadn't truly lived until now, as she passionately kissed me, hinting at a finality. It seems I might be developing feelings for her, or possibly already have. That morning, an uncommon weight pressed on my chest. Haven't you felt that sensation before? A sense of unease without a clear cause? I just lay there in that tiny guest room, gazing at the ceiling, aware that something was amiss. For 2 consecutive days, Carolyn hadn't texted me. No cheerful good mornings. There were no subtle glances during breakfast. No, "Could you help me get upstairs?" with a smile conveying more than it should. Instead, There was only silence, heavy, chilling, and awkward. I tried to rationalize her absence, considering she might be playing it safe, maybe tired, or perhaps Austin had been around longer. Perhaps she just needed some personal space, but deep down, I knew the truth. Over time, I'd grown familiar with Carolyn, understanding her habits, gestures, and her ability to mask troubles with a facade of normalcy. I sensed our connection dwindling. That Friday, Austin departed for a weekend trek with his relatives, leaving at 6 sharp. I stayed in the kitchen, waiting, unsure of what for. A message, a visit, some indication? But nothing came. After some time, I couldn't bear it anymore and tread softly up the stairs, as if each step made too much noise. Her room door was shut. I hesitated to knock, then did so anyway. She opened almost instantly. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing an old sweater and jeans. She didn't look like herself when we were alone. She didn't smile or seem surprised. Instead, she moved aside and invited me in with a simple, "Come in." I entered the room. Though the air remained still, it felt chillier. We sat on the edge of her bed, close yet untouched. There was a lengthy, painful silence before she spoke. "I think we should end this." She was direct and unsparing, as was I when she uttered those words, dropped it abruptly and forcefully, which mirrored a scene I had envisioned repeatedly. "Yes, I comprehend," I whispered. I could tell. Carolyn seemed to be gripping her hands tightly, as if to anchor herself. "Someone will be hurt," she murmured softly. "Not only us." "I get it," I confirmed. And yes, I did grasp the situation, but that didn't diminish the pain. She continued talking, as if releasing everything before losing courage. "I hadn't anticipated this, Alex. I wasn't seeking it out. I hadn't prepared for it." Turning to face her, I said, "Neither did I." She hesitated before speaking. "I might care about you excessively," she whispered. "But we are dealing with a fire here. Do you understand?" I responded. "I am tired of hiding, tired of deceit." She shifted the topic. "Every glance at Austin, even my husband, seems to overlook my presence, yet he remains my spouse." Her voice faltered slightly, touching me deeply. "I'm not ashamed of what happened," she whispered. I yearned for emotions once more. "You returned them to me," she continued. "You reminded me that I'm still alive. But this cannot continue. We must stop pretending there are no consequences." I slowly nodded, my throat too constricted to respond verbally. So, I remained silent, trying to keep myself composed. Then she turned to me earnestly, questioning, "Do you regret it?" Without hesitation, I responded. She nodded her understanding gaze. "Good," she said softly. "Because I don't either. I want to end this before it turns sour, before we are discovered, before it obliterates everything." This resonated deeply. Not with anger, but the burden of realizing she was right. We stood up together, drawing nearer to the door. She opened the door, yet didn't step aside promptly. Her hand hovered, suggesting she might reach for my face, grasp my hand, or utter a different sentence. Yet she didn't do any of those things. "Make me a promise," she said. "Anything." I agreed. "If you ever reflect on this moment, don't let guilt consume you. Recall it truthfully." I gulped. I made the promise. Then I departed. There was no lingering gaze, no last words. I simply descended those stairs with a lump in my throat and turmoil within me. That night, I gathered my possessions. I informed Austin about an affordable small studio downtown that I had found, and told him I needed personal space once more. He asked few questions. Possibly he suspected something. Perhaps he preferred not to know. I departed the following morning. She wasn't there when I left. And that was it, or so I thought. After about a year, 11 months to be exact. I hadn't seen nor heard from her since then. My heart divided, stepping out with a bag slung across my back. No words exchanged since dawn. Initially, her presence invaded my thoughts randomly. A tune on the radio, someone with hair like hers passing me on the street. Eventually, it became little more than a subdued noise in the background. Persisting, yet I feigned deafness to it. On the outside, I was moving forward, acquiring an apartment and taking on extra freelance work. Dating casually here and there, but nothing substantial ever took root. One Saturday afternoon, I walked into a small bistro I'd never visited before, killing time before my meeting. Ordering black coffee, settling down, and scrolling through my phone, I suddenly heard a voice. Not a greeting, just Alex. And I recognized it immediately. Looking up, there she was, Carolyn, barely altered but showing signs of life's burden in her eyes. She retained her serene elegance, along with the reassuring aura I would always remember. Wearing a long beige coat over a black turtleneck, she casually tied back her hair. "Wow," I countered, rising abruptly. "Hello?" "Hello?" she returned with a cautious grin. "May I take a seat?" she inquired. I motioned to the chair opposite me. "Certainly." She deposited her purse and folded her hands neatly on her lap. An extended silence ensued, one that wasn't awkward, but tranquil. "I didn't anticipate encountering you," she admitted. "Neither did I echoed. "I had no clue you frequented this part of town." "This isn't my usual haunt," she confessed, looking down. "My workplace hosted an event nearby." She raised her gaze to me once more. "You seem attractive." "Thank you," I responded. "Same here." Another pause ensued, and she gazed out the window. "I've contemplated messaging you more times than I can count." "I know the feeling," I murmured softly. She looked back at me, truly observing. Her eyes had not altered in any way. They were still penetratingly clear. Even now, her quiet demeanor made me feel as if she could read my soul. What I said before, I meant every word. She replied quietly, harboring no regrets about our past. Neither did I. I concurred. She subtly leaned towards me and spoke even more softly. My sentiments remain unchanged. My discomfort deepened as seeing you again stirred memories. Not only the feelings between us, not merely the passion, but that bond has never truly faded away. "How are things at home?" you asked. She flashed a guarded smile. "Stable, maybe even worse." I nodded understandingly. "And Austin?" she inquired with an air of sympathy. "He's as clueless as ever? He occasionally brings up your name, asking about your recent activities." That struck me harder than expected. I cast my gaze away. "Yes, I too think of him often." She extracted her phone from her coat pocket, hesitated, then placed it on the table. A message appeared on the screen, written yet unsent. Nobody would be home tomorrow. I examined it, not from apprehension, but from a deeper place. Recognition, memory, desire. "I've attempted to move past this," she murmured softly, trying to forget. "Us. You. It lingers, Alex. I don't believe it ever left." I met her gaze squarely. "The same here." We sat there with untouched coffee before us, as the world continued around us. Yet in that instant, time seemed to pause again. As before, it was. Then I spoke. "If we tread this path once more, we must not deceive ourselves." "We never have," she replied. "That's what made it real." At midnight, my phone buzzed. The origin, her, tomorrow, noon. I didn't reply, but I went. Upon opening the door, she stood there in a simple sweater and trousers, bare makeup, her hair loose. She remained silent, casting a glance at me instead. I entered, and she followed, closing the door behind us. Thus, we found ourselves back in our familiar place, There are no grand speeches, no fabricated dreams. They seem to have attempted to let go, but maybe they never intended to. Farewell.